We've had a lot of questions for updated Dynasty rankings, and I've held out until now because, full transparency, it's very difficult to make Dynasty rankings during this season. I mean, you have your bucket of teams that are contending, trying to win right now. You have your bucket of teams that don't really care about this season and are playing for 2023. And then you have everybody in the middle. So I'm going to try to do my best to appropriately evaluate each player for what I believe their Dynasty Fantasy Football trade value should be with this moment. But please understand that, hell, if you are a true contending roster where you're just thinking about this season, you probably want Tyreek Hill over Chris Olave. Whereas if you're a rebuilder and we can go sell Tyreek for Chris Olave and a pick, we may be interested in making that kind of move. But before we get into this, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to go down there and drop them in the comment section. In the comment section, you'll also find a link to Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, every single week, you can check out their awesome player props. And also, they have weekly drafts you can take advantage of, available in damn near every state. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. Find the link in the comment section. Find it in the description. But that should be it. Let's dive into the #1 wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. Now, I'm recording this right after the catch of the year, the catch of the century. I mean, minus the Odell Beckham Jr. catch, of course. But regardless, Justin Jefferson has been phenomenal. Justin Jefferson, over 1,000 receiving yards already this season. We all saw what just happened against Buffalo. 16 targets, 10 receptions, 193 yards. This is in the range of outcomes for Justin Jefferson each and every week. And if we're thinking about what's going to change with this situation going forward, well, Adam Thielen, it looks like no longer someone you need to be worried about, regardless of if that's in the red zone, regardless. We all agree. Adam Thielen's an afterthought. Now, if we're looking at Kirk Cousins, he's going to be here for the long term. Okay, the Minnesota Vikings are 8-1. I think that they would really upset the fan base, to say the least, if they made a play for any quarterback not named Kirk Cousins in 2023, 2024. I think this is going to be a very stable situation for Justin Jefferson. It's hard to imagine it changing too much. This is a wide receiver as well that is 23 years old. This is the third straight season of dominance from the man. He's still only 23. I mean, such a great asset, regardless of if you're rebuilding, contending, obviously has a spot on your team. But going over to the other player in tier 1, we got Jamar Chase, 22 years old, a year younger than Jefferson. With Chase, I mean, so far this season, obviously we have a few individual blow-up games, game with 129 yards, game with 132, another game with 130 with Jamar Chase. Haven't seen him in the past few weeks with an injury, but that shouldn't affect his Dynasty Fantasy Football value, because if you're a true contender, hell, you're going to make the playoffs regardless of if Chase is on your roster. And if you're that true contender, I mean, hell, we can really use Jamar Chase for the fantasy football playoffs, and he should 100% be back by then. So he gives you the short-term value, and he's also going to give you the long-term value, as hell, he's in year 2. He's 22 years old. What else could you be asking for? So Jamar Chase, super safe option. I mean, obviously it's frustrating if you built your roster around him, and we've been dealing with the injury over the past few weeks. Haven't had a productive week from Jamar Chase since October 23rd, but the fact that he actually avoided the IR does make me a little more excited about his possibility of coming back very, very soon. But now going over to the third guy, I don't know if we're overreacting to a big game here, which of course you never want to be overreacting to a single game in Dynasty. I do want to put CeeDee Lamb here. Now, CeeDee Lamb going to lead off the tier. He's not going to be up there with those other guys. Coming up for performance with 150 receiving yards, multiple receiving touchdowns. So maybe I have a little recency bias going on. But with Lamb, he's been great this year. I mean, this is a wide receiver with 88 targets through the first 10 weeks. We know that they've already gone through their bye. So CeeDee Lamb's been averaging essentially 10 targets a game. And a big thing with Lamb is obviously same draft class as Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb was drafted in 2020. But some people forget how young CeeDee Lamb actually is. CeeDee Lamb is younger than Kenny Pickett. CeeDee Lamb right now is 23 years old. Like, I want to get excited about our next guy in Jaylen Waddle, but Jaylen Waddle is actually older than CeeDee Lamb, despite CeeDee Lamb being drafted so long ago. This was one of the reasons why he popped in your prospect model, because he was dominant at a young age at OU. So it's, in my opinion, a pretty good spot with Lamb going forward with this Dallas Cowboys offense that, I mean, obviously has Lamb slotted in as that alpha wide receiver target now with no Amari Cooper. I think you have a very nice player for the long term as well as short term. But now our next guy, 24 years old, Jaylen Waddle. Now with Waddle, my most drafted player in redraft leagues this year. Loving what we have so far. Borderline top 5 wide receiver when it comes to receiving yards. Now with Jaylen Waddle, like we said, I mean, it's a little deceiving because he's in year 2. CeeDee Lamb's in year 3. A little bit older than CeeDee Lamb. It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, this is a player that's still around for the long term. Now, with Tua Tagovailoa, he has been way better than I expected this year. And this coming from someone whose number 1 wide receiver in redraft was Jaylen Waddle. Tua's been significantly better. I don't know if we can project this Miami Dolphins offense for the rest of time, though, in games that Tua Tagovailoa plays in, to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. I don't know if I'm not quick enough to react to this Miami Dolphins situation. I don't know if we should just, I mean, buy into the fact that you're going to have as much passing volume in Miami as you're going to get in Kansas City. It's hard for me to believe that that's going to be the case over the next 5 seasons. If it were to be the case, if you get Tua Tagovailoa crushing at this rate for the next 5 years in Miami, there I think you would have Waddle at 3. But keep in mind, you do have Tyreek Hill, and we'll get to Tyreek a little later on, but he's actually a little younger than I assumed. Now going over to our next guy, A.J. Brown at 5. Right now, as I'm recording this, I am watching the Eagles game. It just turned to half. So A.J. Brown not having a good game right now, but honestly does not matter too much. I mean, with A.J. Brown, this is a wide receiver that's been phenomenal so far this season. You've had the massive spike weeks. I mean, we saw 2 weeks ago, A.J. Brown, 156 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns in a single performance. He's had over 700 receiving yards. Now, very similar to what we were discussing with Jaylen Waddle. I'd be very interested to hear your thought process on this. Obviously, at the time of this recording, we're in halftime right now for the Eagles. 8-0. They've been phenomenal. Jalen Hurts has been elite. It's been unbelievable. Do you think we can consistently project this passing volume? Do you think we can consistently project the Eagles to score this many points for the next few seasons? I mean, this is a team that has multiple future firsts going forward. I mean, this is a team that has the New Orleans Saints picks, and obviously the Saints losing football games. Good for Philadelphia here. Such a good organization to get very excited about in the long term. Brown is a little bit older than CeeDee Lamb, than Jaylen Waddle. He is 25, but at the same time, maybe from a redraft perspective, you still prefer Brown. But now going down to our next tier, we're going to go T. Higgins at 6. T. Higgins, same draft class as Lamb, same draft class as Justin Jefferson, only 23 years old. And with Higgins, I know he's been somewhat quiet. We had the game earlier this season against the Baltimore Ravens where everybody started T. Higgins, including myself, thinking he was good to go. Then he doesn't play at all. I mean, you have another game week 1 where he goes down with the injury. We have another game from Joe Mixon with 5 total touchdowns. I feel like we've had a lot of noise in the stat line of this T. Higgins season so far, where he's been a little bit better than you would actually assume. But even with all that noise, if we remove week 1 where he left at the beginning of the game, 71, 93, 124, 47, 93, 49, 60 receiving yards. He was great last season. He's been great this year as well. He's been productive. I still rank him in a redraft perspective as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. And if that's the short-term expectations for a 23-year-old player, I do want to get very excited. But as we sit here and talk about this, I think maybe we need to move him down a spot. Maybe we should put Amon-Ra St. Brown at 6 instead. I mean, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously he doesn't have the same long-term situation at quarterback as you have with T. Higgins, who T. Higgins is attached to Joe Burrow. But you also have T. Higgins attached to Jamar Chase, where we know he's never going to be the wide receiver 1 here. Whereas in Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown is in that position. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been phenomenal so far this season. Now, of course, they go through and they invest into Jameson Williams, who we have yet to see his rookie season. But if you look at the profile of Jameson Williams, we were talking about not drafting him in your Dynasty rookie drafts, instead taking Olave for a multitude of reasons. But one of those was the fact that Jameson Williams profiled to be a player that was going to be better from a real life perspective than a fantasy football perspective, given the fact that you have, I mean, all the speed, all the ability to stretch NFL defenses, to create space underneath for wide receivers like a Monroe St. Brown, who have already been generating a ton of separation. And on top of this, if we're going to be looking at a player like a Monroe St. Brown, now that we have TJ Hockenson being removed from the situation, I think it's only better. I mean, how can you say anything else other than Hockenson leaving means more targets available for St. Brown? This is a team with draft capital. This is a team that you're really hoping that they lose some games here, because if they're going to be losing games, that means they're going to be getting a better draft pick, which is something we need if we want to be able to bring in CJ Stroud, which is something we need if we want to be able to bring in Bryce Young. But now going down to our next tier, this is going to be the contending tier. So honestly, you only want these players if you're a contending team. Please, for the love of God, if you are 3-7 right now, if you are 2-8, if you are 1-9, and you have not traded away one of these wide receivers, and they're sitting there on your roster, you're playing Dynasty wrong, my friend. Go sell them. Get future picks. Get assets that are going to be ascending in value as we go into the offseason. But we got Diggs, Tyreek, and Cooper Kupp all back-to-back-to-back. Now, it's a little surprising here is obviously we had Stephon Diggs drafted back in 2015. I mean, I don't even remember when Tyreek Hill was drafted, but Cooper Kupp drafted in 2017. So you would assume that Stephon Diggs, the oldest, Cooper Kupp, significantly younger than these other options. Well, Cooper Kupp went to the smallest school ever, and for that reason, he felt the need to stick around to break every school record you could ever imagine and make sure nobody could come close to him. Cooper Kupp is old as hell. Cooper Kupp stayed 5 years in college. The man's 29, turns 30 this summer. You combine this with the ankle injury we have for Kupp. Now, keep in mind, I'm recording this on Monday, so we don't have a clear picture on exactly what this injury is for Cooper Kupp. But if he's injured, if he's older than these other options, even if maybe he outscores these guys from a points per game perspective going forward, I think in redraft, they're going to be pretty damn close. And you know what? As we sit here and think about this, Tyreek Hill probably has to be 8 because Tyreek is younger than Diggs. And I mean, I would probably prefer Tyreek Hill from a redraft perspective than Stephon Diggs. So if he's younger, we have to prefer him from a dynasty perspective as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go with some rookies here. We got Chris Olave at 11. Oh, with Olave, a wide receiver that has been great so far this season. I mean, everything has broken in his way, if we're going to be fair. Obviously, Michael Thomas going down. You have Jarvis Landry going down as well. So you had to have someone to throw the ball to in New Orleans, and Chris Olave is taking that spot. Now, what I'm a little bit worried about is how does the quarterback situation get fixed here long-term? Like, serious question. Because this is a Saints team that I believe doesn't have their first-round pick. I believe that's sitting with the Philadelphia Eagles. At the same time, if you look at the cap space situation for this New Orleans Saints roster, be very difficult if they wanted to go out there and make a play. It's not like it's as simple as, okay, well, let's take a first-round pick that we don't have and let's trade it for Aaron Rodgers. I really don't see how this team's going to be able to turn their quarterback situation around. They're probably not starting Winston. They're probably not starting Andy Dalton next year. But I'd imagine it's just some marginal or replacement level quarterback. Maybe this is Jared Goff's next stop if he ends up getting replaced with CJ Stroud. Obviously, they'd probably leave him there a year. I'm just trying to come up with any example. So because the long-term quarterback situation is still a question mark, I will be somewhat concerned with Olave for that reason. And if we're looking at another rookie wide receiver that has been phenomenal, we have Garrett Wilson in a very similar spot. Garrett Wilson was a prospect that I actually liked over Chris Olave. I mean, I am a Garrett Wilson fanboy. I don't see how the situation gets much better with him either. Because with Zach Wilson, yes, the New York Jets are winning games. And bravo, if you're a Jets fan, I'm happy for you. But if you're a Jets fan trying to go out there and sell the idea that Zach Wilson is still the quarterback of the future, that Zach Wilson is still improving, I know a lot of people hated us for saying it last year. I mean, a lot of people hated us for saying it this offseason. I don't see hope with Zach Wilson here. I think that Zach Wilson, it can't go through and turn into an above average starting quarterback at the NFL level. Maybe he can somehow, some way find his way to being a Jared Goff level player for his NFL career. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be stuck with bad quarterback play for quite some time, especially because the rest of this Jets roster is phenomenal. So they continue to win football games. They're going to keep winning football games. I can tell you what that means. that means that this is going to be a team that is not going to be able to get one of those top quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft. They're going to be dealing with Zach Wilson here for quite some time. But I think that's all we got here for the top 12. Please let me know in the comment section if you want to see more Dynasty videos like this. And of course, if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you want to check out any of these player props, if you want to get into a draft with us, you can do so with the link in the description, the link in the comment section. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up and they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. But I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for being a member of the flock. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you with another video this week.